Folks, we're going to begin services now. The friends especially, I want to thank you for your presence here and helping the family through this difficult time. I know it's greatly appreciated. Folks, if you have phones, let's just take a moment and silence the phones for the dignity of our service. Thank you for your patience, and we're going to begin now.
We listen to the comforting words of the 23rd Psalm. Adonai ro'i lo eksar, bino deshe yarbitseni, al mei menuchot, yenaleini. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheini begmaglet tzedek, yancheini begmaglet tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz hamavet lo iroro ki ata imadi shiftecha umin shantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai, shulchan neged sorerai, deshanta vashem en roshi, kosi rivaya. Yudifuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shovti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Adonai ro'i lo eksar, Adonai ro'i lo eksar.
Those are the beautiful words of the 23rd Psalm. It's a psalm of hope and comfort. And if you know the words, I'll ask you to please join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We are assembled with our friends in the darkness that has fallen upon them. We raise our voices together asking for comfort and strength. We need light when gloom darkens our lives. We need fortitude and courage when pain and loss assail us. Who among us has not passed through trials and bereavements? Some of us bear fresh wounds in our hearts and therefore feel more keenly the kinship of sorrow. Others, our days of mourning are more remote, and yet we still recall the comfort that sympathy brought to our sorrowing hearts. May our sharing of sorrow and our deeds of solace bring comfort to the loved ones of Estelle Haber. The poet writes, Leda hi reshit uftira tachlit. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Ledahi reshit uftira taklit, birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. Excuse me. Estelle had a beautiful journey in life. The end of her life was difficult without any hesitation. But today is Estelle's 85th birthday. In and out on the same day. Incredible. Estelle was a lover of life. Today is filled with the tears of sadness, but also tears of joy that her suffering, her decline is over. As Estelle said, life is for the living. Estelle was the mother of Karen, David, and Susie, mother-in-law of Ron, Morris, Lisa, and Jillian, grandmother of Heather, Michelle, Jared, Jonathan, Max, and Corey, sister of Myra, sister-in-law of Sandy and Harry, cousin of Shelley and Susan, Lee and John, Seymour and Natalie, aunt of Gary, Keith, Lisa, Michael, Danny, and Joey. As well, Estelle was Mom, Mommy, Mutzi, Stell, Stelly, Esther. She was part of Boomy and Stelly. And the poet writes about her name, L'chol ish yeshem. Each of us has a name given us by God and given by our father and mother. Each of us has a name given by the way we stand, our way of smiling, and the clothes we wear, given by our planets and by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and by our longing, given to us by our enemies and by the ones we love. Each of us has a name given us by our feast.
She smelled so good, I used to call her my carnation when she was little. And she used to follow me wherever I went, and I let her. Until one day, we were going into the playground, and my friend said, "Oh, here comes Myra with her tail." So after that, I didn't let her stay with me anymore. I said, you can't, you're too big, and I'm too big, and I can't let you be with me. We had a very special relationship. She was my best friend. We finished each other's sentences because we thought so much alike. She loved to read, and she was in a book club for 40 years, something like that. And all her friends I see are here, which is wonderful. She loved music, she loved the opera, she loved to go to concerts. She was a daughter, a sister, a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a friend, and a teacher, and did it all with grace and beauty. I love you, sister. Rest in peace.
Beautiful, beautiful tribute. So the story that she didn't tell, that I'm now going to tell, is that a long time ago, Estelle was in one baby carriage, and there was a little boy in another baby carriage, and they would walk together. The little boy's name was Lenny. And walking alongside Lenny and Estelle, holding hands, do I have this right? One on one side was Myra and a guy named Lenny's brother named Arnie. Arnie and Estelle went back to the baby carriage. That's how long this family has been telling this story for a long time. Estelle was so loved by her children. And you, Karen, David, and Susie, so loved her, each in your unique way. You didn't have a competition with each other. You didn't battle. You just loved your mother in a beautiful, deep way. She held your hand through life, and you held her hand until she couldn't. And when all was left was a gentle kiss, you received her love, and you gave love back to her, gently, respectfully, beautifully. I want to invite up Karen, and then David, and then Susie.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is with great joy that I get to eulogize today about my mother, a woman I loved more than any other. Many of my friends and family have experienced great concern about my emotions at this time about this loss. Please know I am so at peace that my mother is at peace. It has been a very difficult 7 years since my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It has been a very difficult disease for our family to deal with. Although make no mistake, there is a lot worse than what we went through. That other families have to deal with. The hard part for me was the day the diagnosis was made, which was on my daughter Michelle's birthday, February 7th, 7 years ago. I actually thought that there was no way that we'd get that diagnosis because it was Michelle's birthday, and how could I have bad luck on that day when I had had such good luck in having Michelle? At that moment, I actually felt as though I lost her, that I would see her slipping through my fingers and disappearing before my eyes day in and day out. It was honestly more than I could bear. Everyone deals with things differently. I went to the library and got a stack of books 2 feet high on the disease and read every single one of them. The more I read, the more depressed I got. It was the way I had to deal with this. I even pushed my mom to read one of the books written by an Alzheimer's patient that was going through the phases. She read it and said it made her depressed. One of my only regrets with my mom is that I pressed her to read that book. I constantly would cry. I was always crying. And she would hold me and tell me, Karen, I need you to be strong. I can't have you crying. You have to be strong. It was so hard. For those of you that really know me, you know that our family has experienced a lot of loss over the last 5 years. My brother-in-law, Randy, my dad, my children's father, Alan, my mother-in-law, Jane, and my beloved mom now. In dealing with all this grief and trying to have the strength to deal with the impending death of those I love, I came across an article, a beautiful article about a woman and her family who would foster terminally ill babies who would otherwise die alone. She attributed her desire to take this journey and help these children because of a loss of her own sister from a tragic accident where her sister had, because of meningitis, had mental and physical handicap, and she drowned in a pond and likely died scared and alone. She said that through her life she struggled with the question, where was God when my sister needed him most? She heard a song lyric, "It may be unfulfilled, it may be unrestored, but anything that is shattered, that is laid before the Lord, will not be unredeemed." It was with this promise that changed her prayers and inspired my own in caring for my ex-husband, Alan, and my mom. Instead of asking God over and over again why things had been the way they were, you lay down the hurt and the disillusion before God and said, "Here, you take this and redeem it." And He has in ways beyond fathoming. It has been an honor and very rewarding to have had the opportunity to care for my mom over these 7 years. I have been her healthcare advocate, and I know she has been well cared for with love and dignity from day one. She had the absolute best caretakers that you can ever imagine. Aileen, I don't know where she is, she's back there, and Farah, and Josette. She was well cared for. She always looked beautiful. She had on makeup and her nails were done. And she just always looked stunning. We have all of us, my brother, my sister, my aunt, her caretakers, have kissed her 1,000,000 times. And we've had many, many wonderful moments, right? She was always showered with love by her sister Myra, by my sister Susie, and my brother David, as well as those caretakers. It has been very difficult, but a very rewarding journey, particularly for me. Although it is difficult to care for the dying, and most people prefer to stay away and not call or write, it is very lonely. It is the greatest mitzvah that you can do for a dying person, to simply help them live until they die. If you can, please remember this with your friends and your family, because we're all getting to the point in our life where this will be happening more and more. Dear Mom, I love you. I always have, and I always will. Dear God, please cradle my mother in your loving arms. Amen.
First, I want to apologize to my cousins, Melissa and Bobby, because I forgot to tell the rabbi that she was an aunt to them too. And Melissa's here, so I apologize, Melissa. I don't even know if I need glasses. Thank you all for coming. All of you. Almost all of you touched all of our lives and my mother's life. Her friends from book club for 40 years. Her friend Bernie Cohen for over 70 years came down from Jupiter. Her cousins, Shelley and Susan. Shelley, who she's known his whole life. It's an amazing thing when you try to figure out what to say about someone's life someone such as my mother. Mother is a verb. It's something you do, not just who you are. As the rabbi said, my mom was graceful, elegant, respectful, moral, kind, and strong. She raised us to do the right thing. In fact, I believe she stayed around this long just to finally see me be the man she hoped I would become. I'm going to tell a couple of stories because my sister went through all of the sad part, and I think it's time for a little laughter since it's her birthday, right, Mom? So there was these magic cards, and I wanted these magic cards so badly. We were living in Elmsford, and she wouldn't buy them for me, and I was throwing a temper tantrum on the floor of the store at Alexander's on my back, kicking my legs, and she said, "Get up." And we walked out of the store, and we went to the car in the parking lot, and I showed my sisters the magic cards. Big mistake to show Karen those cards. Big mistake. Wasn't the first time Karen got me in trouble, nor the last. So, what did Karen do? "Mommy, David took the magic cards." My mother grabbed me, yanked me by the shoulder, pulling me back into the store. I was mortified, which is exactly what she wanted. I had to walk up to the store manager and hand back the magic cards that there was no way I wanted to hand back. But she made me do it. And I learned a big lesson. Don't steal. My mother loved exercise. My mother was one of these pre-spinning, pre-boot camp, pre-Orange Theory, pre-Peloton, pre-spin class people who kept in shape. I presume you all saw the pictures outside of how stunning my mother was. But even as she got older, into her 40s and 50s and 60s and even 70s, she walked on the boardwalk every single day. In fact, she would pass Rabbi Glickstein on the boardwalk when he was desiring to do exercise on the boardwalk. She swam every single day in the pool. She read books every day. She and my father had this passion for books. And they, along with some of their friends, they were like put their name on the book, down at the library, so they got all the best books right away. And because you only got to keep the book for a week, my parents would come back with a stack this high each, and they would read one a day. That's how much they loved reading. My mother loved summer camp. She loved being up in the mountains, till my father grabbed her one day and said, "You're coming back to the city," because he missed her. And he drove all night to go up to the Catskills to go get her and brought her home. Mom raised 3 children, I would just say virtually on her own. Each of us has postgraduate degrees. We're all considered successful in our professions and fields. But to Mommy, and I call her Mommy because she's still my mommy, the most important thing was not money, and it wasn't professional success. That was Daddy's issue. Mommy was about being a good person and doing acts of loving kindness. She was a teacher. She went to PS 105 as a child, and then she went back to teach there as a teacher. Then when we moved to Rye, she got a job in the school system that we went to school in. And so when we went to junior high school, all of my friends that were in her elementary school said, "Your mother, man, was she tough. Imposing and really tall." And I now recognize why she was so tough, strict, but fair, and why she didn't take any nonsense at school, because she had enough at home with me and my dad. I got a call yesterday from a woman by the name of Sandy Haber, not Sandra Haber Edelman, And she was crying on the phone, and I tried to tell her, don't cry, Mom is in a better place. And she just wanted to tell me a story. And the story was that whenever she took us to the Bronx to visit both grandparents, because she made sure she took us to my dad's and hers, and to Aunt Myra's. So it's like we went on a circle, you know, before we got to go home. But Sandy had a little baby, and she was living with her mother because her husband was a doctor and he was overseas, I think, in the Army. And my mother would go visit her at her mother's house, at Sandy's mother's house, when she came into the city, because she didn't want her to be alone. Everybody can see the pictures of how stunning my mother was on the outside. I realized when I was about 20, she looked to me like Lauren Hutton with the gap between her teeth, and she acted with the grace of Audrey Hepburn. Now, on the other hand, she had a backhand with a rat tail from the kitchen towel that could challenge Rod Laver's backhand. And then I would hear the words, "Wait till your father gets home. Go to your room." That was like a daily occurrence. And it was always because I was hitting, beating up, pushing. In Yiddish, they say mitching, my sisters. Susie, I would place on a pillow in the den, turn on the football game, and I would scream Carla or on the tackle, and I would go after her. And Susie never spoke as a child, so she didn't really complain. But Karen would scream as I was coming up to her. Before I even got a good hit in, she would scream, "Mommy, he's hitting me." And I'm like, but I didn't even get to her yet. And that was her revenge upon me for all the times I hit her. My parents spoke Yiddish around us so that we wouldn't know what the heck they were saying, and they used to tell us, learn Yiddish, which none of us did, but we all know some words now. She was a great cook and a great baker, and she didn't just learn from her mother, she learned from my grandmother on my father's side as well, and she was just fantastic at it. And all three of us, when we were telling the rabbi our favorite meals, believe it or not, were not really Jewish food, it was Italian food. She made this great chicken parmesan, and she would make lasagna. I don't know where she learned it from. I wanted to talk about Ocean Reef because my parents spent 45 years going to Ocean Reef on the weekends. And they made a deal. And the deal was my mother would go on the boat with my father fishing, and Captain Marty's here. Thank you for being here, Marty. So long as she could read her book and listen to the opera, the Metropolitan Opera, Saturday afternoon. And I hated it. It was like torture to have to listen to the opera on a boat when there was Led Zeppelin I could have been playing. And it's bad enough we had Captain Bligh, my dad, who gave you one sandwich and one drink for 12 hours and said, if you don't like it, swim home. But to have to listen to the opera on top of that. And of course, now I love the opera. I love the opera. I love the symphony. Mom used to say about the symphony when we would take her or when she would go, she'd say, do you realize that 250 years ago, only royalty could hear classical music? Only royalty had symphonies come to play for them. And look how lucky we are. I also remember the day we went to Dr. Duarte's and got this diagnosis, and I was like numb. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Unlike Karen, I didn't go look at any books. I didn't do any reading. It took me years to really comprehend what the decline was going to be like. She had great caregivers, and they're here. She had dignity. My father, who didn't visit her very often because I don't think he couldn't take it. He couldn't take looking at her decline. But he always said to Karen, in particular, you make sure her hair is done, her nails are done, she's dressed properly, she has her jewelry on, and she is cared for. And he did provide the financing for that, thank God. What can I say about Myra? Not much other than the most loyal sister you could ever imagine. After Leo, my uncle, passed away, my mother would go take Myra, and they would spend all the time together, every week. Myra was her backbone, if you will, to help her when she was having a rough time, and vice versa, when Myra was having a tough time. Karen, I don't know what to say, how you took care of Mommy. I just don't know what words I could use for rubbing her feet, for feeding her, for caring for her every day. Susie and I couldn't do it. You had the strength, the will, and the desire to do it. And it was the most amazing gift that Mommy could ever have. And you and I and Susie have talked about it. Even when she couldn't talk anymore, you would look at those huge blue eyes and they would stare at you. And even at the end, when she really didn't know anybody but Karen and Myra, she would stare with those eyes at you. And in the last year, she would, with her Parkinson's, grab for your hand and hold it. And she would want kisses. And I, of course, was busy in Miami working. And I'll say this about my wonderful sisters. Not once did they ever make me feel bad about what I was doing or what I wasn't doing. They were there with Mom. Susie, of course, also got the raw end of the deal because every time Karen went out of town, Mom ended up in the hospital, and Susie was the one who was there with a strong backbone. Family always came first to my mother. And while Alzheimer's took her memory, her ability to speak, her ability to walk, and finally her ability to swallow, the essence of my mother never left her body. The soul of my mother, the goodness of my mother was there to the last. You know, I always say that my father and my uncle were quite a pair. When they got to heaven, they got in through the skin of their chinny chin. But my mother was the first round draft pick. She was the first pick in the draft to get there. There was no question about it. I looked up some things about Mom in Judaism because her name was Esther in Jewish. The name Esther itself is an indication as to how she led her life and fulfilled her role. The root of Esther in Hebrew is Hester, meaning hidden. Often we think that when someone is hiding something, it's out of a situation of embarrassment or discomfort. The modern day concept is, if you got it, flaunt it. Show the world what you have to offer. Be out there, be public. The more, the better. It's not so exciting being the heroine behind the scenes. But if one's desire is to show everyone else what you have to offer, what you're capable of, yes, it's better to be out there in public. But if one's desire is to use one's capabilities for a higher purpose, to achieve a greater good, not just for one's ego, then the best way to do this is to begin in private, in a hidden way, so that the goal can be accomplished. And in that sense, she was selfless, hardworking, and resilient. I remember her going with friends to the Melman Center and holding the crack babies so that they had someone to hold them, taking classes at FIU, doing charity work for Federation, charity work for JAFCO, and charity for National Council of Jewish Women. Nobody could say my mother wasn't a nice person. And of course, she looked even better standing next to my dad. Thanks to my mom for giving me two incredible loving sisters, two pillars, one on each side, one older, one younger. I remember wailing Mommy all the time. My mother used to say, "You're an only child. You just happen to have two sisters. Susie was my mom's favorite. There was no doubt about that. How do I know that? It's very simple. She told my dad not to talk to her and that she was off limits. My mother never sought the limelight. The limelight sought her out because of her beauty, inside and out. She was tough. She would say, Karen, stop chewing your hair. David, go to your room. It was constant. But she was ethical, moral, and fair, except when she was punishing me for hitting my sisters. My mother passed away very close to her Jewish birthday, and she will be buried on her birthday. Somebody told me that in Judaism, it's considered a blessing to die on or close to one's birthday. The Talmud teaches that Moses passed away on the 7th of the Jewish month of Adar, which was his 120th birthday. The Talmud explains that God calculates and completes the lifespan of a righteous person, as read in Exodus 23:21. I will complete the number of your days. Why is this significant? Hasidic masters explain that on the day we are born, we are entrusted with a mission. The righteous person lives his life or her life, achieving his or her fullest potential, and completes his or her mission on earth in the most perfect way possible. This perfection is expressed in the fact that Mom's mission ended on the very same day that it was begun. There's a Spanish proverb, an ounce of mother is worth a pound of clergy. Sorry, Rabbi. There's a Jewish proverb that says God could not be everywhere, so he created mothers. And Abraham Lincoln once said, I that I am, or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. I love you, Mom, and I always will. And I used to scream, I miss you, Mommy, and I probably always will. We all need a mommy. We had one heck of a mommy. Happy birthday, Mom. We celebrate you, your life, and all you have instilled in us. And I say to you in closing, all of you, those of you who have a mother, call your mother. Tell her you love her. Remember, you're the only person who knows what her heart sounds like from the inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all for coming here, friends, family, to share in our remembrance celebration. Today is a day to really celebrate Estelle Haber's life. If I cry today, it's a celebration cry. The wound began years ago when Mom was diagnosed. It's just reopening a scab. We lost her a long time ago, somewhere between last week and 7 years ago. You see, it's been years since I've had the joy of holding my mother's hand and walking down a street, talking about her grandchildren, walking on a beach, going to lunch, or doing anything that mothers and daughters traditionally do together. Alzheimer's created new normals for us over the years, and I assure you they all sucked. I must give a shout out to all of my mother's caretakers that are here today, but especially the one that I feel the closest to, Eileen Pierre. You were an angel in my mother's life for over 3 years, and I found her first, so I take credit, and there you go. Next, my dear Aunt Myra, who you know, she made it her mission to see her baby sister. And if you have a sister, hold her hand and love her, because it is a very special bond. My brother, as he said, was never criticized for not being up in Boca, not visiting, but he was strong in his own way. And you gave to Mom, when you put that phone near her and you said, it's Dovidal,
Those eyes got bigger. She knew. Well, you know, when you agitate that long for that many years, you recognize. I would like to say on behalf of my brother and I again that what Karen did is nothing that either us could have done what she did. She was at every doctor's appointment. She was my mom's caretaker for 7 years. My sister was a staple in the nursing home. Every doctor, every aide, every nurse, every cafeteria worker knew her name. In fact, it wasn't just a few minutes after Mom's passing that Karen sat there eating chicken parm, saying, I think I'm going to show up at Willowbrook Nursing Home next week and just help feed the people. That's my sister's pure heart. I also would like to thank David Degani, Rabbi David Degani, who is my husband, our family's rabbi, who was in the room Saturday night when Mom passed. He was there Friday night with my husband and I to say prayers and comfort our family and help us and help Mom in this transition. I'd also like to say thank you to our families, our spouses, Lisa, Ron, and my dear husband, Morris, because unlike my sister, I did not enjoy going there. I would get there and look at my watch, and I would count until I could leave. It wasn't my joy to be there. It was very hard, and my husband was a rock for me. There were times I could convince him to come, and those days were great. Then I took up knitting, and I started taking my knitting with me. And my mother used to love to watch me knit. She loved to watch the motion. My mom was beautiful both inside and out, as you can see, and as you know from your years knowing her, if you were blessed enough to know her for these many years. She was tall and elegant in a way that none of us are, sadly. She was lovely in every way. She was composed and calm, preferring privacy versus the limelight. She enjoyed tranquil time with a good book. She loved baseball, opera and symphony music, and big Hershey bars with almonds. Her signature fragrance when we were young was Youth Dew by Estelle Lauder. And she had the powder and the perfume, and when she would go out at night, I can remember that scent, and I think I'd have to get a bottle. They just spray it around and remember. She was diligent about exercise, as you've heard, and she enjoyed tennis, golf, swimming, boating, that was a little Arnold, and walking the boardwalk on Miami Beach. I was an overweight teen. I was an overweight kid and teen. Mom would convince me to take a walk with her. I was less than enthusiastic, as you can imagine. I would complain miserably, saying I had a pain. Mom, I can't walk, I have a pain. She'd say, walk through it, walk through it. Later, many years later, we would joke when I took up running. Mom traveled the world with my father extensively, and later with Karen and I, we took trips, daughter-sister trips. We were lucky to enjoy annual trips with Mom in the 1990s and 2000s. Some of those trips are forever tattooed in our minds. Our recent family trip to Alaska, there were 11 of us with our children. Mom was not there, continues the joy of family travel that we began years ago. Mom loved her family. She was a devoted daughter, sister, mother, and grandmother. When we were young, Mom balanced working as a school teacher and raising 3 kids. I just retired from being a teacher. It was something we had in common. She worked very hard to keep us well protected and loved in a sometimes very complex family dynamic. That's politically correct. When Mom came to Miami Beach and was no longer teaching, she kept very busy with numerous charities which she was involved with for decades. My love for cooking and baking, as my son Corey is here and Brady is here, my son's a great cook, and I love cooking and baking. It comes from my mother. She would bake strudel. It was a yearly event. She made loads of strudel, and it's a very labor-intensive recipe, if you are aware, if you ever baked before. She was given this recipe, I believe, by her mother, and when she made this strudel, she would give it to every family member who liked strudel. She would ship it to Colorado to Cousin Lee. I'm personally not a fan of strudel, but I love to bake. I make her honey cake recipe, and I have fond memories of the last time that I made it with her when she was giving me the recipe. Mom was spectacular. We were blessed to have her for so many years before the illness took over. Mom will miss you forever and will love you for always. Enjoy your new normal. Rest in peace.
Beautiful tributes, really beautiful. Estelle gave love unconditionally, ate chocolate, drank a good glass of wine, listened to good music, protected those she cared about. She lived a life with a good name and gave generously of her good heart. May her memory, the way she held your hand, the way she blew you a kiss, the way she loved you, always be a blessing. Take a few quiet moments, each in our own way, to remember. I ask you to please rise for the Amalei Rachamim prayer. This prayer asks that Estelle's soul go to a place of comfort in your heart, in your hearts, as well as a place of comfort in the universe.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Otohorim, Kizaharakia, Mazehirim, Et Nishmat Esther Bat Yaakov Veshendel, Shehalcha Leolama, Baal Harachamim, Yastirei habitseter kenafav leolamim, Vitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkavah, V'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Estelle Haber, Esther Bat Yaakov Veshendel, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen.
Folks, this does conclude the temple portion of our services. We're going to be going to Lakeside Memorial Park for the burial. You're all welcome to come along. If you do want to come with us, folks, we have some placards that you can hang from the rear view mirror. Hang it so it's facing forward like that. But the most important thing is that you turn your flashers on. That's how we can see that you want to be part of the procession. At this point, we're going to ask to have the following people come forth and exit and help to escort the casket to the hearse. I'd like to have Jonathan and Max and Corey and Ron and Morris. If you'd please step forward, we're going to move the casket.